Good evening. This is your evening briefing for Thursday, the 16th of April, 2026. Today's briefing spans a High Court ruling on Victoria's political donation laws, fresh Australian jobs figures, and a mix of major international updates on Ukraine, Iran, Sudan, and Argentina. Leading the briefing, Victoria's political donation caps have been struck down after the High Court found the laws unconstitutional. The ruling means the state could be left with no donation limits and no disclosure rules unless new legislation is passed before the November election. Also in the briefing, Australia's unemployment rate held steady at 4.3% in March, according to the Australian Bureau of Statistics. Employment rose by 18,000 and unemployment fell by 4,000, with growth driven by 53,000 more full-time jobs even as part-time work declined. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has declared a 32-hour ceasefire in Ukraine for Orthodox Easter, starting at 4 p.m. Saturday and running until the end of Sunday. The Kremlin says forces were ordered to stop hostilities in all directions, but both sides later accused each other of violations. In other developments, Iran-linked and sanctioned ships are reportedly stopping or turning back in the early days of a US naval blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. US officials say the operation is aimed at halting sea trade tied to Iran while allowing normal passage for ships transiting to or from non-Iranian ports. Elsewhere, the head of the UN nuclear watchdog says any US-Iran deal to end the Middle East war must include very detailed verification and full IAEA access. Rafael Grossi warned that without agency involvement, any agreement would be an illusion and said Iran has not given inspectors access to bombed nuclear sites. Also today, the NSW EPA has updated its cleanup notice for 3M Australia after PFAS was detected in the Kapiti River near Glen Alice. The company must now survey residents along Olymbra Creek and part of the river, while the EPA says levels are above drinking water guidelines but still below recreational levels. Separately, the IMF says it has reached a staff-level agreement with Argentina on the second review of the country's 48-month program, which could unlock about $1 billion if approved. The fund says Argentina has stepped up reforms with more than $5.5 billion in foreign exchange purchases this year and plans to keep a zero cash balance and a 1.4% of GDP primary surplus. In other news, Canada is committing more than $120 million in new funding to respond to the Sudan crisis and support neighbouring countries. The package includes more than $94 million for humanitarian aid, $25 million for development projects, and $1.25 million for peace and stabilisation efforts. Turning to another story, Benue State in Nigeria is stepping up Lassa fever controls after a rise in cases and a high number of infections among health workers. Officials say the state has recorded 50 confirmed cases and 12 deaths, and more than 125 health workers have now been trained, with protective gear being sent to treatment centres. And finally, New South Wales is putting $9.8 million into grants so early learning services can offer free health and development checks for preschoolers. More than 1,400 preschools and long day care centres are set to benefit with checks for 4-year-olds covering growth, oral health, speech, behaviour, motor skills and learning. That is your evening briefing.